People have known for a long time that the New York City Department of Corrections is really participating in the immigration enforcement that's going on here in the city and that's leading to the deportation of New Yorkers, but nobody really understood the scale. Last year we obtained some documents through the Freedom of Information Act which showed us that 3,000 to 4,000 New Yorkers a year are being funneled from the New York City Department of Corrections into immigration detention, and that's as a direct result of a policy decision by this administration. The bottom line is that we'd like a policy. Right now, there is no policy. There is no point at time when the city has sat down and thought about when does it make sense for our local interests to hold people and transfer them into immigration, and when doesn't it make sense? That's never happened, and what we're asking is that the government develop a reasoned and balanced policy that doesn't waste New York City taxpayer dollars, doesn't unnecessarily divide New York families, and doesn't kind of interfere with the community policing efforts of the NYPD. There's going to be some category of people who have been convicted of serious things where New York City will want to spend the dollars to do that. But what we want is a hard look at when it makes sense and when it doesn't make sense. And so far, nobody's taken that look. A report that's being put out by the Justice Strategies Research Institute is documented for the first time just how much more detention these detainers are causing in the Department of Corrections. And what we know is that the people with immigration detainers can't get bailed out. And as a result, they spend longer, much longer, on average 73 days longer in immigration detention than people without detainers. And who picks up the tab for that? That's the New York City taxpayers. And based on the Mayor's Office of Operations numbers, that calculates out to over $50 million a year. And that's $50 million that can't go to keeping firehouses open, keeping books on libraries, and keeping food in food pantries. There's a young man who's been involved with the campaign named Luis. He was arrested for a very serious crime. He was arrested for attempted murder. The hitch is he didn't do it. And eventually the prosecution realized he didn't do it. But it took some time, and he sat in the Department of Corrections custody with an immigration detainer during that time before the charges against him were dismissed. And one of the reasons it took so long, and one of the reasons he spent so long in the Department of Corrections custody, was because that the witnesses who knew he didn't do it wouldn't come forward because they were afraid of getting deported themselves. Once he was cleared, instead of being released, New York City funneled him right into the immigration detention system, where he was swept away to Texas, spent another 4 months in immigration detention in Texas, and right now he's still out there fighting his case and trying to prevent his deportation. This is a young man with no criminal record, a young man who's in college, and it just makes no sense for New York City taxpayer dollars going to deport that fellow.